Hey everyone, welcome to Chronicles of Mysterious Tales. Now, there's a certain quiet that falls over you when you step through the gates of a cemetery. It's a place of reverence, of memory, a place where we lay our loved ones to rest. We tell ourselves it's their final piece, the end of their story. But what if for some, it's not the end? What if the stories are just beginning? Whispered on the wind between the tombstones, carried by shadows that flicker just at the edge of your vision. What if these hallowed grounds are not as peaceful as they seem? Tonight, we're not just looking at old stones and faded names. We're embarking on a journey to the world's most haunted graveyards, places where the silence is frequently broken by unexplained whispers, spectral figures, and a perceptible sense of being watched. These aren't campfire tales I've cooked up. These are real locations, steeped in history and fear. Places with reputations so terrifying that many people refuse to enter after dark. From the violent poltergeist of Edinburgh to the voodoo queen of New Orleans, we're going to explore the stories that keep these cemeteries alive with paranormal activity. So, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and maybe check over your shoulder one last time. We're about to walk among the dead, to explore the places where history refuses to be buried. We're going to ask the question that has haunted humanity for centuries. Is there something waiting for us on the other side? And more importantly, can it reach back? Let's find out as we delve into the chilling tales from the world's most haunted cemeteries. Our journey takes us to the historic and undeniably beautiful city of Edinburgh, Scotland. Nestled at the heart of this city is a place cloaked in darkness, Greyfriars Kirkyard. By day, it's a bustling tourist destination, a living piece of history that draws visitors from around the world. But as night descends, a much darker story emerges, one that centers on a single, ominous structure, the Black Mausoleum, final resting place of Sir George McKenzie. This is no ordinary tomb. Many believe it's home to one of the world's most violent and well-documented poltergeists. But who was George McKenzie, really? In the 17th century, he served as the Lord Advocate, earning the grim nickname Bloody Mackenzie. Mackenzie's job was to persecute the Covenanters, a Presbyterian group who resisted the king's interference in their church. He was ruthlessly efficient. He oversaw the imprisonment, torture, and deaths of thousands. Many of his victims were held in a section of Greyfriars Kirkyard, now known as the Covenanters' Prison, right beside his own future tomb. The irony is hard to miss. For centuries, Mackenzie lay undisturbed, if not peacefully, then at least in silence. But everything changed in 1999. That year, a homeless man, desperate for shelter from the rain, broke into the Black Mausoleum. According to the story, he fell through the floor, crashing down among the coffins, the bones of the Mackenzie family. Terrified, he fled, but it seems he awakened something ancient and furious. He didn't just stir up dust. He may have opened a doorway between our world and whatever angry dimension Mackenzie was trapped in. Almost immediately, strange things began happening to people on the graveyard tours, especially near the mausoleum. And these weren't just cold spots or odd feelings. We're talking about physical attacks, real physical encounters. Visitors have reported being pushed, scratched, and even hit by an unseen force. Many leave the Covenanters' prison area with mysterious bruises, deep scratches on their backs and necks, and even burn marks that seem to appear out of nowhere. The number of documented incidents is staggering. Over the years, hundreds have claimed to be attacked. There are official records, photographs of injuries, and countless first-hand accounts. Some people have collapsed, felt their hair being yanked, or been overcome by sudden intense nausea. Even tour guides have seen a dark, shadowy figure lurking near the tomb, and some have been attacked themselves, quitting their jobs out of sheer terror. Things got so bad that the city council eventually locked the Covenanters' prison section to the public. Now, you can only enter that part of the kirkyard with a guide, and only after signing a waiver acknowledging the risk of paranormal activity. Yes, you literally have to sign a form that says, hey, a ghost might rough you up a bit, and that's on you. If nothing else, that shows just how seriously this is taken. The phenomena here are so consistent and aggressive, it's earned the name, the McKenzie poltergeist. This isn't just a fleeting glimpse of a ghost. It's an interactive and often violent haunting. Naturally, people have tried to explain it away. Some blame mass hysteria, the power of suggestion from tour guides, or even geological factors. But how do you explain the physical evidence? There are hundreds of photos of scratches, often in sets of 3, a classic demonic mockery of the Holy Trinity. And what about the sheer number of similar experiences from people who've never met, all focused on this one malevolent spot? Some paranormal investigators believe Mackenzie's rage is trapped here, lashing out at anyone who dares trespass on his prison grounds. Others think it's the vengeful spirits of the Covenanters he persecuted, their anger fueling the activity. Or perhaps it's something darker, an inhuman entity drawn to the immense suffering and death that soaked this soil centuries ago, now wearing the name McKenzie as a mask. Whatever the source, the energy in Greyfriars is undeniable. People who enter as skeptics often leave as believers, or at the very least, deeply unsettled. They leave with a story to tell, and sometimes a scar to prove it. The air itself feels heavy, charged with a history of pain that refuses to fade. It's a chilling reminder that some grudges are so powerful, not even death can contain them. So, the question remains, is it the ghost of Bloody Mackenzie, forever patrolling his prison? Or is it something else entirely? The only way to know for sure would be to spend a night locked inside the Covenanters' cemetery. And honestly, after hearing all these stories, that's a hard pass for me. The evidence is compelling enough from a safe distance. Leaving behind the cold, misty graveyards of Scotland, we journey now to the sultry, vibrant heart of New Orleans, a city alive with music, mystery, and spiritual energy. Here lies a true city of the dead, St. Louis. Cemetery number 1, a maze of above-ground tombs that has watched over New Orleans for centuries. As the city's oldest cemetery, its unique oven-shaped vaults rise above the ground, an adaptation to the ever-present threat of flooding. Among the many souls resting here, one name stands out, evoking awe, fear, and fascination: Marie Laveau. Known as the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, Marie Laveau was a woman of extraordinary influence and power in the 19th century. To her followers, she was a healer, a spiritual guide, and a fierce protector. But to her critics, she was a formidable sorceress, one who could curse her enemies and commune with the most mysterious spirits. Her story is woven from threads of fact, legend, and whispered secrets passed down through generations. Marie Laveau was both a devout Catholic and a powerful voodoo priestess, a duality that only deepened her mystique. Her tomb, simple yet imposing, is now one of the most visited graves in America. For decades, visitors followed a ritual: draw 3 X's on her tomb, spin around 3 times, knock, and make a wish. If their wish came true, they would return to leave an offering in gratitude. Over time, the tomb became covered in chalk X's, a testament to the thousands who believed in her power long after her passing. But not everyone comes to Marie Laveau's tomb seeking favors. Many visitors have reported far more unsettling encounters. The most common sighting is of a tall, striking woman in a red and white turban gliding silently among the tombs before vanishing into thin air. Some say she is accompanied by a massive black snake, one of her favorite spirits, slithering at her feet. Her spirit is said to be especially active and fiercely protective of her final resting place. Those who disrespect her tomb or speak ill of her name have reported sudden illness or being shoved by an unseen force. Cameras malfunction. Batteries drain in an instant. Classic signs, many say, of paranormal energy drawn from the living world. But Marie Laveau is not the only restless spirit said to wander these crowded alleys. St. Louis. Cemetery number 1 is home to countless other ghosts. One of the most frequently seen is Henry Veens, a 19th century sailor. Before a long voyage, he entrusted his landlady with his important papers, including the deed to his family tomb. When he never returned, she sold the tomb, leaving his spirit without a resting place. Now, his ghost is said to wander the cemetery, asking lost visitors if they know where the Vignes tomb is, before fading away. Another spectral resident is a young man named Alphonse. He's often described as handsome and smiling, appearing near the tomb of the Société d'Économie. Alphonse is known as a helpful spirit, guiding lost visitors toward the exit. But his story carries a darker twist. Legend says he was murdered by the Pinayad family. And now, as a ghostly act of revenge, he warns their descendants to stay away from his grave. The atmosphere of the cemetery is overwhelming. The heat, the humidity, the twisting paths, and the crumbling tombs create a sense of disorientation and claustrophobia. You can feel the weight of history, the density of souls, packed into this small, sacred ground. It's easy to see how the mind could play tricks in such a place. Yet the stories are too frequent, too similar, to be dismissed as mere imagination. Tour guides and cemetery workers share tales that will send chills down your spine. They speak of hearing disembodied voices in French and Creole, of shadowy figures darting between vaults, and of the eerie sensation of being watched, only to turn and find no one there. The energy here is so strong that paranormal investigators often capture astonishing evidence, from full-sentence EVPs to photos of unexplained anomalies. Whether it's the lingering power of the Voodoo Queen, the lost sailor, or the countless others interred here, St. Louis Cemetery number 1 is a place where the veil between worlds feels impossibly thin. Here, the past isn't just remembered, it walks beside you in the thick Louisiana air. The tradition of marking the tomb with triple X's has ended to protect it. But belief in Marie Laveau's power and her ghostly presence remains as strong as ever. Our next stop takes us across the pond to London, England, to a place that feels like it was plucked straight from the pages of a Gothic horror novel. Highgate Cemetery, with its tangled ivy, crumbling angel statues, and winding, shadowy paths, is easily one of the most atmospheric and beautiful cemeteries in the world. But beneath its Victorian beauty lies a tale of public panic, vampire hunters, and a terrifying entity that haunted these grounds in the 1970s. Highgate is divided into 2 sections, the East and West cemeteries. The older West Cemetery, with its Egyptian avenue and circle of Lebanon, is the heart of the haunting. For over a century, locals whispered about a Highgate ghost, but these were just scattered stories. Everything changed in the late 1960s. Groups of young people who visited the cemetery after dark began reporting a terrifying sight. a tall, dark figure with glowing red eyes. One of the first widely reported encounters came from two young women in 1969. As they walked home past the cemetery late one night, they were paralyzed with fear by the sight of figures rising from the graves. But it was one figure in particular that haunted them. Tall, dark specter with a hypnotic, terrifying gaze floating just above the ground. This was the spark that ignited a media frenzy. Local newspapers were soon flooded with similar reports. One man's car stalled outside the gates, and he saw the same figure staring at him through the bars. This is where the story takes a wild turn, from ghostly sightings to a full-blown vampire hunt. Two men, David Farrant and Sean Manchester, both local occultists, became the faces of the investigation. Manchester, a self-proclaimed bishop and vampire hunter, claimed the entity was an undead king of the vampires, a medieval nobleman who practiced black magic in Romania and was brought to England in a coffin. Farrant, on the other hand, believed it was a more traditional spirit or psychic entity. The rivalry between these two men turned the whole affair into a public spectacle. In March 1970, on Friday, the 13th, a TV interview with Manchester inspired hundreds of amateur vampire hunters to storm Highgate Cemetery, armed with wooden stakes and crosses. Chaos erupted. People climbed over the walls, broke open tombs, and even staked several corpses. It was mass hysteria, fueled by fear and sensational headlines. But the sightings didn't stop there. A young woman claimed she was attacked by the figure, knocked to the ground, and left in shock. Another man, a psychic, spent the night in the cemetery and was found the next morning in a catatonic state, his face frozen in terror. He claimed the entity had attacked him psychically. Sean Manchester later claimed he found the vampire's coffin, drove a stake through its heart, and burned the remains. David Farrant said he exorcised the entity with magic rituals. Yet, despite their claims, strange happenings at Highgate never truly stopped. The tall, dark figure is still seen from time to time, silently watching over the graves. One of the eeriest things reported is the sound of bells. In Victorian times, some coffins had a safety bell, a string from the deceased's hand up to a bell above ground, in case they were buried alive. Visitors have reported hearing the faint, desperate ringing of these bells from beneath the earth, a chilling echo of old fears. Beyond the vampire legend, Highgate is said to be haunted by other ghosts. The ghost of a mad old woman is seen rushing through the grounds, searching for the children she's said to have murdered. A spectral face sometimes peers out from behind the main gates, its expression twisted in anguish. The entire cemetery is steeped in a sense of melancholy and dread that goes far beyond its Gothic architecture. The Highgate vampire panic may have been a product of its time, a mix of real fear, media hype, and rival occultists chasing fame. But something started it all. Too many people who didn't know each other described seeing the same tall, dark, floating figure with burning eyes. Was it a vampire? A ghost? A demon? Or was it a tulpa? A thought form brought to life by the collective fear and belief of the public. Whatever it was, it left a permanent mark on the history of this iconic cemetery. For our next tale, we travel to South America, to the opulent and beautiful La Recoleta Cemetery in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This isn't your typical graveyard. It's more like a miniature city, with wide streets lined with elaborate marble mausoleums adorned with statues. It's the final resting place of Argentina's elite, but among the presidents and generals lies a story so tragic and terrifying It has become the cemetery's most enduring legend, the tale of Rufina Cambaceres. Rufina was born into a wealthy and prominent family in the late 19th century. She was a beautiful young socialite, the daughter of a famous writer. Her life seemed perfect. But on her 19th birthday, in 1902, tragedy struck. As she was getting ready for a night at the opera, she suddenly collapsed and died. 3 different doctors examined her and all pronounced her dead from a heart attack, or what they called a syncope. Her family was devastated. They held a lavish funeral and laid her to rest in the family mausoleum in La Recoleta. The city mourned the beautiful young woman cut down in her prime. But the story should have ended there. A few days after the burial, a cemetery worker heard strange noises coming from inside the Cambaceres tomb. Fearing a grave robbery, he alerted the family. When they opened the heavy stone crypt, they were met with a scene of pure horror. Rufina's coffin had been shifted and the lid was broken. Inside, they found scratch marks on the lid and on Rufina's own face and hands. Her fingers were bruised and bloody. The horrifying truth dawned on them. Rufina hadn't been dead. She had suffered a cataleptic fit, a condition that mimics death by slowing the heart rate and breathing to almost undetectable levels. The story that pieced itself together is the stuff of nightmares. Rufina had woken up, alone, in the pitch-black darkness of her own coffin in the mausoleum wall. The terror she must have felt is unimaginable. She would have screamed, clawed at the satin lining, and pushed against the lid with all her might, until her fingers were raw and her voice was gone. The effort of trying to escape, combined with the sheer terror and lack of oxygen, caused her to suffer a second, and this time, fatal heart attack. She died twice. Her family was consumed by guilt and grief. Her mother commissioned a new, grander Art Nouveau mausoleum to be built. At its entrance now stands a life-size statue of Rufina, her hand resting on the door to her own tomb, as if trying to open it. It's a beautiful but heartbreaking tribute to her tragic fate. But it seems Rufina's spirit was not at peace. Ever since her death, visitors and workers at La Recoleta have reported strange occurrences around her tomb. The most common report is the sound of a woman crying or screaming coming from within the stone structure. Others have claimed to see a pale, spectral young woman wandering the streets of the cemetery at night, looking lost and confused before vanishing near her own mausoleum. Some people believe her spirit is forever trapped, reliving the terror of her final moments. They say she wanders the cemetery, searching for a way out, just as she tried to escape her coffin. The story has become a cautionary tale, a dark stain on the history of one of Argentina's most famous families. It taps into one of our most primal fears, being buried alive. Paranormal investigators who have visited the site have captured EVPs that they claim are Rufina's whispers for help. Others have reported their equipment malfunctioning near the tomb and have felt an overwhelming sense of sadness and panic in the air around it. The statue itself is said to be a focal point for the energy. Some visitors claim to have seen its expression change, or to have felt a cold hand on their shoulder while looking at it. The story of Rufina Cambaceres is a powerful reminder of the thin line between life and death, and the medical limitations of a bygone era. Her beautiful tomb stands not just as a memorial, but as a monument to an unspeakable horror. It ensures that no one who visits La Recoleta will ever forget the girl who woke up in her grave, and whose spirit may still be trying to find the peace she was so cruelly denied. We've walked through the misty kirkyard of a vengeful lord, stood before the tomb of a voodoo queen, hunted a vampire in London, mourned a girl buried alive, and explored a forgotten grove teeming with spirits. These places, scattered across the globe, are more than just collections of graves. They are theaters of history, where the final act for some has never truly ended. The stories and the evidence we've looked at tonight are compelling, unsettling, and for many, undeniable proof that we are not alone. These cemeteries hold a powerful grip on our imagination because they represent our greatest fear and our greatest question. What happens when we die? The experiences of countless visitors to these locations suggest that for some, the spirit lingers, tied to the earth by tragedy, injustice, or an unbreakable will. Whether you believe these are veritable ghosts, psychic impressions left on the environment, or simply tricks of a frightened mind in a spooky place, the power of these stories is undeniable. They make us question the world we think we know. So now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a strange or unexplainable experience in a cemetery? A cold spot, a strange whisper on the wind, or something you just couldn't explain? Share your own scary cemetery stories in the comments below. Let's talk about it. And as you go about your night, remember the tales we've shared. Remember that history has a long shadow, and in the quietest places, the past is never truly dead. Sometimes, the dead don't rest easy. They continue to forever rock on into eternity. Thank you for watching Chronicles of Mysterious Tales. Like, subscribe, and share my channel. And as always, I appreciate you. Until next time, happy hauntings.